Hi guys, welcome back to Knitting Expat Podcast channel, and I'm here to do part 3 of the Knit With Me series where we finish off the cowl that we've been working on. I've been hoping or trying to film this final part for the last couple of weeks, but honestly the construction work is starting to really get to me now, and I'm struggling to find time where I can do this when there's not a whole bunch of noise going on. It's still a little bit noisy. I've closed the window, so hopefully it's not too bad, but if you hear any background construction noise throughout this video, I'm sorry. There's not much I can do about it. Honestly, like the other day, I swear they had a jackhammer going upstairs. It was so loud. It was horrible. But hopefully not for much longer. Anyway, so I have my cowl all ready to go, but my usual recording setup is at the dining table, but here we go. My dining table is a bit of a mess right now. So before we can even do anything, I gotta tidy this up. Well, that's a bit better now, isn't it? Okay, just gonna get myself set up and then get going. Okay, so now we've got a clearer table, we can get to it. Okay, so that's everything out of my project bag, and this project bag is by Hide and Hammer, for anyone who's curious. I do love it, it's pretty much always in use. That's over there. So this is where we're at. We have finished the knitting portion of this. Now if you remember, my original plan for this was to do an infinity style cowl, so like a double loop cowl. But as you'll see here, it's not going to wrap around twice. Like it does a 1.5 wrap, so it's not really long enough. So what I've decided to do instead is I'm going to do a reversible cowl. The techniques involved with finishing this off are pretty much exactly the same. I'll show you what you would have done if you were going to do it as a infinity cowl, and then I'll show you how I do it as a reversible cowl. Like I said, the actual finishing technique is the same. You're just kitchening the ends together or grafting them together, but the difference is how you line up your fabric to do that. That's what gives you the difference. So we finished our knitting. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn this inside out to where we had the join, and just make sure that join is nice and secure. So I've just double knotted it, so that's fine. At this point, I'm just going to leave it like this. I'm not going to do anything else with it, but at this point, if you wanted to, you could go back and weave in these ends, especially if you haven't knotted it. You can go back and weave in these ends before we finish it off. And there are going to be 2 other ends. You're going to have the end from where you cast on or started knitting with your main yarn, and the end from when you finish your kitchenery, and I'll show you what you do with that as well. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick up the provisional cast on stitches. So I'm going to bring the camera in a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing, and we're gonna do that together. Okay, so in order to do this, I just have a spare needle that I'm going to use to pick up these provisionally cast on stitches. Now it doesn't matter what size this needle is, you want it to be either the same size as the needle you were working with or smaller. So these are US ones, 2.25, and I believe I was using 4mm needles, or 4.5. Yeah, I was using 4.5mm needles for the cowl, for the knitting. So these are much smaller, but that's fine, and sometimes it's actually easier to have smaller needles to pick up these provisional stitches. So looking at this, make sure it's on camera. Looking at this, I put in a little knot in the scrap yarn. It's just that you can't really see it, but I put a little knot in the end of the scrap yarn where I started doing the provisional cast on, where the slip knot end was, and we're going to start unraveling it from the other end. So that little knot in the scrap yarn is just like a little reminder for me that this is not the end I want to start unraveling from, because it's going to take longer. So we're going to start unraveling from the other end. So all you're going to do is you're going to just start unpicking, just unpick that first little bit, and don't worry too much if you end up with some live stitches. Like, as long as you don't pull and stretch your fabric, they're not going to go anywhere, they'll just sit there waiting for you. So I'm going to start over here, and don't worry about how you pick up your stitches either, we can fix that later. And then at this point you should be able to just unravel the stitches. So I tend to just unravel a few at a time and then go in with my needle There we go. And pick them up. Like I said, I don't worry too much about the orientation of the stitches. I just want to make sure I get them on the needle, and then we can go around and fix them afterwards. So I've got the first 4 stitches on the needle, and then we can keep unraveling. Like I said, I just do a few at a time just to keep it manageable. And if a stitch does drop, again, like here, like I've got one that's dropped a little bit, not a problem, we can fix that afterwards. I just find the important thing is to get all of the live stitches on your needles, and then we can do one round of going, around the stitches and making sure everything is on correctly. Another option you can do is, before you've unraveled it, you can pick up the stitches whilst they're still on the provisional cast on. Just be careful not to split the yarn off the provisional cast on, because then it makes unraveling harder. And then you can unravel once the stitch is already on your needles. That's a little bit trickier to do. It's not impossible, but sometimes it's harder to see where those stitches are when they're still on the provisional cast on. Like you can see here where the yarn is coming through that stitch. Let me see if I can zoom it in a bit more so you can see what I'm doing. That one, the stitch dropped because it was too tight on the provisional cast on, but that's fine, I can fix that later. I think I'm just going to go with the method I was doing first, where you just unravel a few and then pick them up. That seems to be what was working best. See here, I've got a couple of stitches that dropped. I've got the loose thread hanging at the back there. It is not a problem. Like I said, I can fix that quite easily later. The important thing is just getting all of your stitches onto the needles. So we just have this last little bit left to do, and for some unknown reason the provisional cast on is not unraveling the way it was supposed to be. But that's fine, we can just unpick it one stitch at a time. It's a little bit slower, but it's possible. And this is what will happen if you unravel it the wrong way round. You'd have to, oh wait, no, I think it's working now. But if you were unraveling it the wrong way round, you'd end up having to unpick each stitch one at a time. I think maybe the yarn got a bit twisted at that point when I was doing the provisional cast on, but now it's working again. That's all good. And there we go. We have all of our needles onto our spare stitch. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one round. I say do one round, I'm just going to slip stitches for one round, making sure all of my stitches are in the correct orientation and that they are the way I want them to be, and to pick up any stitches that may have dropped one or two rounds as we go. So just pop that into the back. And I'm going to use this tail as like a guide for where we begin. So for example, this next one is twisted the wrong way and stitched then split, so I'll fix that. That's okay. twisted the wrong way on the needle, fix that, and then just keep going. Okay, I think we've got to one where we've got a drop stitch now. Yeah. So pop that on the needle. Let me zoom in a bit so you can see. So you can see here, there's this little strand hanging loose. That's supposed to be, that's the stitch that dropped. So what we're going to do is we've got the stitch from the level below on the needle. We pop that strand onto the needle, and then you're just going to pull that strand over, and then you've fixed your stitch. It's kind of like making a stitch just with a tiny little bit of yarn. I'm going to keep slipping and checking. Okay, that's a split stitch, so just make sure that's fixed. Yep. Okay, we have two stitches on there that are from the row below, and then this is a strand that needs to become stitches, so we're just going to knit these 2 stitches with this as being the yarn we use to knit with. So just going to slip those back onto my left needle, and then using my right needle we're going to do it as if we were actually just doing a regular knit. So put the needle in, wrap the yarn around, pull it through, pull it through, and there we've got 1 stitch. Pop that over, and we're going to do the same with the other stitch. Put our needle through as if to knit, pick up the strand at the back, and then pull it through the stitch on the needle, let it drop off, and then slip that stitch back on to your left needle, and then slip and keep going. Okay, so hopefully the focus is a bit better now. We'll just keep going around. So this next stitch is twisted the wrong way on the needle, so we're just going to untwist that as we slip it over, and the next one, and even the next one, and the one after that. Had a series of twisted stitches, it seems. Oh, and they're still going. That's okay, twisted stitches are fairly simple to fix. You just untwist them as you slip them. So typically when you're slipping your stitches, you're slipping them purlwise, so you're picking the front strand with your needle. But if your stitch is twisted and you're slipping it, you're going to slip it knitwise. So instead of just picking the front, let me show you. So instead of just picking the front like that, which would be purlwise, you actually go in around it. You go in around it, so you go in front of that stitch, in front of that strand, and then into the stitch and slip. So I'm just going to work my way around the stitches just to make sure everything is lined up correctly. Fix any drop stitches. So how I find it easiest to fix the drop stitch is you put the stitch that's been dropped onto your left hand needle, then you pick up the strand that needs to be the stitch as well onto the left hand needle, and then you pass that stitch over the strand, and there you go, you fixed it. And keep slipping. So now we have our stitches on the needles. I'm going to show you how you would graft them together if you were doing an infinity cowl. So you first want to lay everything out so that your ends are lined up, like your starts of the rounds are lined up, unless you wanted a Mobius, in which case you could like put in a twist first, but like that's not what we're doing. We're just going to deal with doing it straight. When you're grafting these together as an infinity, you want the ends to be grafted like this, right? So I've made the mistake before where I take the end here and the front side here and grafted these together. That's not going to work because you see that that's not the right orientation. What you want is you want to graft the back side, that when you're looking at them, like if you're looking at them like this, you want the front of the first piece at the front, you want this front row of stitches to be grafted to the back row of the stitches of the second piece to create the correct orientation of the fabric. Like I said, I've done it the wrong way before, and it's really frustrating when you figure it out and you've just got to unpick everything. It's not the end of the world. It's obviously you just unpick what you've done, but it's nice to just get it right the first time round. So yes, you want it to be lined up so that you're grafting your stitches together like this, and then you'll just work your way around the piece. But what we're going to do is we're going to do it as a reversible cowl. So I'm going to pull the provisional cast on stitches that we just picked up through the inside, and we're going to get everything lined up together. So let me just get this side fixed. Another thing that I do when I'm knitting in the round is once I get to the end of the round where I want to stop, I'll slip the next few stitches after the round, and that will just hold the marker in place so the marker doesn't fall off the needles while it's in my bag. But we don't need the marker now, so I'm just take that off. And we are now at the beginning of the round at the end of the knitting, and we've got the beginning of the knitting here. We want to line it up with us so there's no twists. So the beginning and the ends to line up. Be a little bit fiddly and needs a bit of jiggling around, but you'll get there. Okay, so this is what our cowl is going to look like. That's the inside. And I've left enough of a tail on my yarn to be able to Kitchener the ends together. So what I did was I just used arm length measurements to see how many arm lengths I needed to be able to finish one round of knitting, and I left more than that worth to Kitchener the ends together, and hopefully I have left enough. I'm trying to figure out what happened, how I did this. Where's the end gone? Oh, 7 minutes later, and we are finally untangled. Okay, let me get the camera set up in a way so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll be back. Okay, so I have this tapestry needle here. I've just got this red one. It happens to have a bent tip. That's not necessarily important, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to thread my end through the needle. There we go, and because it's quite a long one, I'm going to pull it through quite a ways, but not all the way to double it. Okay, so we are ready to start Kitchenering, and essentially that's all it is. If you've ever done a Kitchener stitch for closing toes on a pair of socks, this is basically the exact same process. So make sure I get the ends that are lined up correctly. So all we're going to do is Kitchener. There we go. Kitchener these two rows together. Is that right? Ha, no. 1 second. Okay, so I actually just had my stitches lined up incorrectly again. So what you want to do when you have them lined up, the piece on the outside should have the knit stitches facing you, and the piece that's on the inside, when you pull the needles apart, you should see the wrong side facing you. So you want the right side to be on the inside and on the outside, with the wrong sides touching. Okay, so now we're ready to Kitchener. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I do a slightly modified Kitchener stitch. I don't do the initial setup, which is just knit through here and then purl through the back one. I just go straight into it. I knit off and purl on, and I kind of do it in one and then pull through. And then I purl off. Oops, split that stitch, that's not good. Purl off, and then knit on. at the same time. I just do it all in one motion, just makes it easier and quicker. There we go. And then I just snug it up. I don't pull it super tight. So you've got knit off, purl on. Sorry about the sound of the needles. And then it's purl off and knit on. And you're just going to do that all the way around. So I've done most of it now and I'm almost at the end. I've just got this last little bit left to do, but I quickly wanted to show you what it looks like on the inside. And it's seamless. There is no ridges, there's nothing there. It's just seamless. And then on the outside, again, completely seamless. And it's a perfect way of joining. It looks a little bit wonky, some of the stitches, but that will even out with some blocking. Yeah, so it's perfectly stretchy, same as the rest of the fabric. The kitchen doesn't impede on its stretchiness, which makes it perfect for this type of join and this type of garment. Okay, so I just have this last little section left to go. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that off, and then I'll be back to show you how to finish at the end and how to deal with those final ends. Construction noise has picked up, but I'm sorry, I need to film this last little bit now. Okay, so we're almost at the end. I've just got 3 stitches left to Kitchener, but what I want to do is get the tail end of the first skein out from the inside, because we need to seal it. We need to tie it off with the tail end of this yarn. So I'm just going to finish off the last couple of stitches. Ooh. Get that done. Okay, needles are now out of the way, which is nice. And we can see here we've got a little hole. That's relatively simple to fix. All I'm going to do is tie these ends into a knot. And as it is, if you just ignore the fact that the ends are there, you know, the hole is still there, but it's not that bad. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to poke one end in and not use this one. So I'm going to take the brown strand and I'm just going to pass that in to the inside, poke the needle out further down, pull it through. You see the tail end here. It's a little bit fiddly, but it can be done, and then just using the needle to help pull it out, pull it back into the cowl. hole is big enough that I can get my finger in there, so that will help as well. I'll just grab hold of that strand and pull it back into the inside. Okay, so that's one end dealt with, done, gone out of the way. Put this one back onto the needles, and there's no real, I mean, I don't have any real sort of enlightened technique for this, but I kind of try and follow the stitch around where the knitting is, to just follow the pattern of the stitches to close up that hole, almost like the top of a hat where you go around the stitches and cinch it shut. I'm just going around the stitches to cinch that hole closed. It might not be the neatest, but obviously you can take your time and do it nicer than I have. To be honest, like, I don't think anyone's going to see this or notice it in the finished cowl, so it really doesn't bother me. I am not about perfection. Life is far too short to be all that concerned about things looking a certain, things being perfect. So I just do the best that I can to close out that hole and secure it. Like I said, it's not the prettiest thing, but at the end of the day, when it's on my neck, no one's going to see it. So then I'm just going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to poke it into the middle, except this time I'm going to get my needle way down here, just poke it out there. The idea being that the distance of the fabric is going to be more than the length of yarn you have left. So once you pull it through, and when you straighten out the fabric, the yarn disappears to the inside, it gets pulled through, so you don't have to try and stick your finger in there because you can't anymore. You've closed that hole, and there we go. Our cowl is now done. So let's get this set up and I can show it to you. Build is still going, so apologies about the noise again. The other thing to note is with my two skeins, my orangey brown skein was longer, had more yardage than the green and yellow one, so that's why part of the brown is sticking out at the top of this one. It's not a huge deal. There again, this is hand spun. If you did it with commercial yarn, you probably wouldn't have the same issue, or if you use the same coloured yarn for both skeins, then obviously you wouldn't have this issue either. I think it's really fun for self-striping to do this. And there we go, now we have a loop. So we've got one side is the green and yellow, and then you can turn it inside out, and it's brown and orange. So let's try it on. Oh yeah, this is going to be so snug and warm, and it hasn't been blocked yet. I think once it's blocked it will loosen up a little bit, so it won't be as tight, but I mean it's still going to be snug around the neck. But this is going to be so amazing when it's cold in winter. So excited. Or you could also wear it as like a snood. So let me turn it the other way around so we see the other colours. You can also wear it as a snood, like that. So if it's really cold and windy outside, you can just have it so it's covering your ears and your hair as well. This would be great if you wanted to go swimming in winter and then didn't want to have wet hair and go outside. You could cover it with this to keep your head nice and toasty warm. But you get the idea. So if I'd had more yardage and I knew from the outset that this is what I was going to do, I probably wouldn't have gone back and reduced my stitch count. I probably would have stuck with about 130 stitches on 4.5mm needles, because I think having it slightly looser would have been quite nice. As it is, I mean, it's fine. Like I said, I think once I block it, it will loosen up a little bit and it will stretch out a bit as well. But I'm so happy with it. I'm so happy. It works as like a little muff thing. I mean, you could even double it up again and have it like 4 layers thick. So I can't imagine anywhere you'd need that level of warmth other than maybe the Arctic. That would be very, very warm and thick. But yeah, so let's go block it, and I'll take you along and show you what that looks like. Sorry, my hair's gone completely crazy. Okay, so we're downstairs in our bathroom and I'm gonna get to blocking. So I have my blocking bucket, as it's affectionately known. I'm just gonna fill it up with some warm water. Let's use a little bit of Eucalan. This is unscented. Sometimes I don't even use wool wash, to be honest, but if I have it, just a little drop in. And then all we do is dunk. Just give it a couple of squeezes when it's in the water to get all the air bubbles out, get the knitting nice and saturated. And then that's it. We're just going to leave it for about 20 minutes, half an hour or so, and we'll come back and finish off the blocking. So yeah, we're just going to leave it there for now, and we'll come back in about half an hour and get it out. It's been a while now. I'm just going to get the cowl out of the water. Got a towel here to put it on. So I try and lift it all out together, so you don't have any bits like hanging down with the weight of the water could stretch out the stitches, which isn't what you want. Just a gentle squeeze. You don't want to wring it out, you don't want to twist it, you want to just squeeze it. Don't worry too much about it being completely dry, sort of wringed out, because you're going to wrap it in a towel and squeeze out what's left. Okay, so I'm actually just going to lay this out on the dining table to dry, just because, well, I have other stuff drying on my on the bed in our spare room, so there's no room for it. So I've squeezed out all the extra water, and you can see the towel's a bit wet on this side. I'm just going to turn it over. It's slightly drier on this side, but that'll do. And then just lay it out. I'm just going to pull it out a little bit because I want my cowl to be slightly wider than it was pre-blocking. And pop my arms in. Make sure it's nice and flat on the inside. Okay. It's nice and flat, straightened out. And I'm just going to leave it to dry out. And what I'll probably do in a few hours or later today, towards the end of the day, I might come back and then turn it inside out so this side can be on the outside for a bit and have a chance to dry out, and rotate it every now and again just to let it air out and hopefully dry soon. I'm gonna go and I will check back in when it's dry to show you the finished product. Also, so this is just going to round out part 3 of the Knit With Me series. This is the finished cowl. It is nice and dry, and yeah, it's completely reversible. It is so warm and squishy. It's not actually that cold today, but it feels really nice on, and I'm just going to pop it on really quickly to show you what it looks like. So this is it with this side out, the green and yellows out, and as I mentioned before, the green and yellow section was slightly shorter than the orange and brown section, which is why you see a bit of the orange at the beginning and end. And this is the end that was Kitchenered closed, and you can see there's not really much, you can't really tell, which is the point of Kitchenering or grafting in general, so that you can't tell. As this is it with this side out, this is it, you can see what it will look like with the other side out. And yeah, maybe if I remember, I'll pop in some photos, because I've been out today taking photos of some designs, including this one, and but that's another vlog for another day. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me on this adventure for this Knit With Me cowl. I hope you really enjoy it. You will find a link to where you can purchase the pattern or get the pattern below this video and all the other videos. What I ended up deciding to do was a sort of pay what you can option. So the pattern's available for free. There is a coupon code so you can get it for free, but it's going to be for sale at a price. So it's kind of like for those who want to or who can afford to and are inclined to, and they would like to support this podcast financially to help keep it going. These Knit With Me series videos, I really enjoyed doing this one, and I can imagine doing more of them in the future, but they're going to be quite time consuming. So and I really have fairly limited time for the work that I do have to do, so I'm planning, at least for some of them, to offer the patterns for free or at a reduced cost. But the idea is that you're getting these tutorial videos for free essentially, and as well as the pattern, there's the option to get this one in particular for free. But if you would like to pay a little bit towards me being able to produce these videos and stuff, then by all means I would really appreciate it. The thing is, I thought about doing a Patreon, but quite honestly I don't feel like I have the time. As I said, I don't have the time to produce additional content above and beyond what I already do, and I don't want to take away content that I already produce for my channel to put it onto Patreon. So so I feel like this is one way that I'm probably gonna try out and see how it goes. Another option people have suggested was to set up like a Ko-fi account, which I might do, or a coffee, I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it, but I might look into doing that. But yeah, so this was just a little idea I had, and I want to give it a go and see how it goes and how you guys like it. So let me know what you think down below, if you enjoyed knitting along with me, or did you learn anything from this series? Was it informative? What would you like to see done differently? Do you have ideas for other sort of video Knit With Me series I could do that you'd like to see? And yeah, I will see you guys again soon. Bye.